Welcome to the deep dive. Today, well, your curiosity sparked this one. We're diving headfirst into the world of chess. It might seem, pretty straightforward, rooks, pawns, but there's this incredible 1,500-year story wrapped up in it. It touches on ancient warfare, how our minds tick, culture, even AI. It's surprisingly vast.
It really is. Chess is so much more than just pushing pieces around. It's like a living artifact reflecting, well, everything you just mentioned: history, psychology, culture.
Right.
And to guide us through this deep dive, we're leaning on the world of chess: history, psychology, culture, and AI. It's a really thorough source, covers a lot of ground.
Okay, great. So our mission for you, the learner, is basically to pull out the most fascinating bits. Why has this game stuck around for over a millennium and a half? We want to get into its strategic core, the sort of psychological dance, the cultural impact, but, without drowning you in opening theory.
Exactly. Keep it focused on the big picture insights.
Perfect. So let's start at the beginning, this epic journey. Where and when did chess actually kick off?
Okay, so our story begins back in 6th century AD India. This is during the Gupta dynasty.
Gupta dynasty, okay.
And the game was called Chaturanga, played on that familiar 8x8 grid. What's really striking, though, is the pieces. They directly represented the 4 divisions of the ancient Indian army.
Really? Like what?
Infantry, cavalry, elephants, and chariots.
Wow. So not abstract shapes at all. They were like little military units on a board.
Pretty much. You can imagine early players really seeing it as a mini battlefield.
Yeah, absolutely. Were the rules anything like modern chess, or totally different?
Well, there were definitely some key differences. The queen, or counselor, as it was often called then, and the bishop, the elephant piece, they generally had much more limited movement.
Ah, okay. Not the powerhouses they are now.
Not at all. And how you won might have been different, too. Some accounts suggest maybe you won by wiping out all the opponent's pieces except for the king.
Huh. That really drives home the warfare connection, doesn't it? Less about the checkmate finesse, more about annihilation.
It seems that way initially, yeah. It was a reflection of their military thinking, their societal structure, played out on a board, like strategic war games.
Fascinating. Okay, so it starts in India as Chaturanga. Where does it go next?
Well, from India, it travels westwards,
Yeah.
first into Persia, where it became known as Chaturanga.
Chaturanga, okay.
Then, around the 7th century, with the Islamic conquest of Persia, the game spreads throughout the Arab world, and it evolves into Shatranj.
Shatranj. And this is where some familiar terms pop up.
Exactly. This is when we start seeing terms like Shah for king,
Shah, right?
and crucially, Shah Mat, which means, the king is helpless or ambushed. That's the root of our checkmate.
Shahmat. Checkmate. That's incredible. So the very word comes from that Persian Arabic phase. Did the Arab cultures really embrace Shatranj?
Oh, massively. It spread all across the Islamic world: Spain, southern Italy, North Africa. Arab artists also started creating more abstract symbolic piece designs, moving away from literal figures.
Because of Islamic traditions regarding representation.
Likely, yes. And importantly, they were the first people we know of to actually write books about chess strategy and openings.
Really? Chess books that early?
Yeah. And what's interesting is you see this growing emphasis on checkmate as the main goal. It suggests a deeper strategic understanding developing beyond just capturing pieces.
Right. A shift towards a more defined, maybe more elegant objective: trapping the king. That feels like a big step. And then Europe enters the picture, around 1000 AD.
Yes, give or take. Probably comes in through those contact points: Spain, Sicily, via trade and interaction with the Islamic world.
And the Europeans put their own stamp on it.
They did. Initially, they kind of adopted the Arab forms, but pretty soon they adapted the pieces to reflect their own medieval society. That's where we get the kings, queens, bishops, knights, castles, or rooks and pawns that we recognize.
The classic set emerges.
Exactly. And chess became huge in Europe, especially with the nobility. It was actually considered like an essential skill for a young knight to learn, part of their education and strategy.
Wow. Chess as knightly training. That says a lot about its status.
Yeah.
Did Europe introduce any major rule changes?
Several really important ones. The checkered board, the alternating colors, that came from Europe. It helps visualize movement, diagonals, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
They also gave pawns that option to move 2 squares on their first turn. Big change for opening.
Oh, right. Speeds things up.
And they developed castling, that key defensive move to tuck the king away.
Crucial.
Then the really big one happens around the 15th century, maybe late 1400s, particularly in southern Europe. The bishop gets more powerful, moves any distance along diagonals,
Okay.
and most dramatically, the queen transforms from that limited counselor piece into the most powerful piece on the board, able to move like a rook and a bishop combined.
Whoa. That is a massive change. That must have completely revolutionized the game.
Absolutely. It fundamentally altered the pace and style. Games became much faster, more dynamic, more tactical, less about slow maneuvering, more about attack and initiative.
You have to be way more careful with your king early on, I bet.
Exactly. King's safety becomes paramount much sooner. It's interesting, some historians see parallels to shifts in actual warfare at the time, towards more decisive, faster engagements.
Huh. The game reflecting the times again. Okay, so the queen gets superpowered. Then what? How does it become the global standard?
Well, by the 19th century, you've got increased global travel, colonialism, trade. Chess spreads even more widely with European influence. A huge step for standardization comes in 1849.
What happened then?
The introduction of the Staunton pattern chess set, designed in England. It was clear, easily recognizable, durable. It just clicked. It quickly became the international standard for play.
That's the set everyone knows, the classic design.
That's the one. And having a standard set alongside more established rules really paved the way for formal international competition.
Right, tournaments and things.
Exactly. The first big international tournament was held in London in 1851, and then the first official World Chess Championship match took place in 1886.
A world champion. Who was the first?
Wilhelm Steinitz. And then, to keep things organized globally, rules, ratings, championships, FUI, the World Chess Federation, was founded in 1924.
Okay, so that brings us pretty much to the modern era of organized chess. It's an amazing journey from Chaturanga to FIE, but this European version, the one that got standardized, it wasn't the only branch of the family tree, right?
Not at all. While this international version became dominant, you had these distinct, fascinating forms evolving elsewhere. Like in China, there's Shangqi.
Chinese chess, right, played on the line.
Played on the intersections, yeah. Different board pieces like cannons and elephants have unique moves. There's a river in the middle. It's a very different strategic feel.
In Japan.
Japan has shogi. Again, unique pieces, different board size. The really cool thing about shogi is the drop rule. You can bring captured pieces back into play on your side.
Whoa, okay, that changes everything.
Completely changes the dynamics. And even in Southeast Asia, like in Thailand, their version, Makruk, actually keeps some of the older features like the limited queen and bishop movements from the earlier Shatranj or even Chaturanga days.
So some versions kept closer to the original roots. It's amazing how that core idea, a strategy board game, was adapted and reinterpreted everywhere. The Silk Road must have been key for that eastward spread.
Oh, absolutely. Trade routes, cultural exchanges, Buddhist pilgrims traveling. These were the highways for ideas, including games.
Right.
And even within Europe, as we touched on, the pieces weren't always uniform initially. That elephant piece from India, it became like an archer in Spain for a while, and the bishop we know.
Yeah.
It shows the game wasn't just copied. It was actively shaped by each culture that adopted it.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so we've traced this incredible historical path. Let's shift gears a bit now. Let's look inside the players' heads. What does chess tell us about psychology?
Well, at its core, chess is just a fantastic workout for logical thought and strategic planning. Every single move is essentially a problem to solve.
Right.
You're constantly making decisions, formulating plans, trying to anticipate what your opponent will do, maybe 2, 3, 5 moves down the line. It forces foresight.
And you have to weigh consequences, right?
Yeah.
This move looks good now, but what does it open up later?
Precisely. It really develops that analytical thinking, the ability to evaluate trade-offs. It's like building mental muscle for strategy.
And I guess that kind of thinking, that strategic muscle, isn't just useful for chess.
Not at all. That ability to plan, anticipate, and analyze is incredibly transferable. Think about business strategy, project management, even just navigating complex decisions in everyday life.
Makes sense. But you mentioned psychology. It's not all just cold logic, is it? There's a human element.
Oh, definitely. Beyond the calculations, there's this subtle, sometimes not so subtle, game of psychological manipulation.
Manipulation. How did that work in chess?
Well, skilled players often try to put psychological pressure on their opponent, maybe make moves that create uncomfortable choices, hoping to induce a mistake.
Like setting little traps.
Sort of, yeah. Or controlling the tempo, the pace of the game, to disrupt the opponent's thinking rhythm. Sometimes just projecting confidence, maintaining composure, even if you're in a bad spot, can be a tactic itself.
Playing the player, not just the board.
Exactly. This taps into something called theory of mind.
Theory of mind.
Yeah, it's our basic ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts, beliefs, intentions, perspectives different from our own. In chess, you're constantly trying to figure out, what is my opponent thinking? What are they planning? What are they afraid of? And can I use that?
So you're trying to exploit their potential biases, maybe their impatience, or if they seem overconfident.
Precisely. It adds this whole fascinating layer of human interaction on top of this strategic puzzle.
Okay, so strategy, psychology. What other mental skills are really engaged when you play chess?
Memory is huge. You need to remember the rules, obviously, but also common opening patterns, tactical motifs, and just keeping track of where all the pieces are and what they threaten, which changes with every move.
That's a lot to hold in your head.
It is. And interestingly, some studies suggest experienced chess players often show, enhanced auditory memory as well, not just visual.
Huh. Why auditory?
The theory is it might relate to processing sequences of moves, perhaps recalling analysis spoken aloud, or just general cognitive benefits spilling over. It's an interesting side finding.
Definitely. And focus, concentration has to be key too, right?
Absolutely critical. Blocking out distractions, maintaining focus for potentially hours. It's intense mental stamina. This deep concentration can actually lead to that state Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow.
Flow state.
Yeah.
Being completely absorbed.
Exactly. That feeling of deep engagement where you're performing at your peak, challenges match your skills, and you kind of lose track of time and self-consciousness. Chess is famous for inducing that.
You hear stories about grandmasters being totally oblivious to things happening around them during a game.
Yeah, completely zoned in. That level of immersion is pretty profound.
So, okay, we've got this rich history, this deep psychological workout. It starts to make sense why chess has stuck around. What really sums up its enduring popularity?
I think it's a blend of things. Firstly, that core intellectual challenge is just inherently appealing to many people. The strategic depth means you can always learn more.
Right, it never gets old.
Exactly. Plus, it's remarkably accessible. Basic rules are simple, but mastery is, well, arguably impossible. So it works for all skill levels.
From beginner to grandmaster.
Precisely. Then there's the rich history and cultural weight we talked about. Playing chess connects you to this long tradition. It's also a great social connector.
How so?
Through chess clubs, playing in parks, online platforms, it brings people together. And tournaments offer that competitive outlet for those who seek it.
And we've seen recently how things like pop culture can give it a massive boost.
Right. Absolutely. Something like the Queen's Gambit suddenly brought chess into the mainstream spotlight and got tons of new people interested. It showed the drama and human stories behind the game.
Yeah, that was huge. So it's this mix of challenge, accessibility, history, community, competition, and maybe a little bit of cool factor now, too.
Pretty much sums it up.
Given all this depth, it's probably no surprise that people have found philosophical meaning in chess, too.
Oh, for sure. It's frequently seen as a sort of microcosm of conflict and strategy. You've got two opposing forces, clear objectives, the goal of capturing the king. The parallels to warfare are obvious.
And we mentioned it was literally used for military training sometimes.
Exactly. But the strategy isn't just military. People see reflections of all sorts of conflicts or competitions, sports, business negotiations. The dynamics of attack, defense, planning, reacting, they map onto many areas.
So the board becomes this abstract arena for exploring strategic principles. Have thinkers taken it deeper, like into reflections on the human condition?
Yes, absolutely. Chess provides this bounded, clear system where you have to make consequential decisions, often under time pressure, and with imperfect knowledge of what the opponent truly intends.
Sounds like life sometimes.
Doesn't it? So it becomes a metaphor for decision-making under uncertainty. Also, the intense pursuit of mastery, the constant learning, the intellectual growth, that resonates with broader human aspirations.
And dealing with failure, too, I suppose. You lose a lot in chess.
Definitely. Learning humility, resilience, bouncing back from defeat, those are powerful life lessons embedded in the game. Some have seen the whole game as a metaphor for life's unpredictable journey. You can even get symbolic, seeing pieces representing things like reason versus irrationality, or maybe denial when you refuse to see a threat.
Wow, that's taking it deep. Each piece is a little psychological actor.
It's a rich field for interpretation. And related to that, chess isn't just an internal mental game, it's profoundly social too, isn't it?
Yes, we touched on clubs and tournaments. How else does it connect people?
Well, it's widely used as an educational tool, particularly for developing analytical thinking and concentration in kids.
Right. Lots of schools have chess programs.
Exactly. And it's amazing how it cuts across barriers, age, culture, language. You can sit down and play a meaningful game with someone you don't share a language with. That promotes a kind of social integration.
That's a great point. The rules are universal.
They are. There's even some therapeutic potential being explored using chess for mental stimulation, maybe helping with social reintegration for certain groups. And historically, you even find anecdotes of chess playing a role, however small, in diplomacy, a way to build rapport.
A shared, respected intellectual activity.
Precisely. It builds bridges.
Okay, so it connects people. What about the skills it builds within people? Are the skills you learn playing chess genuinely transferable to other parts of life?
That's the million-dollar question, really. Many people argue strongly that they are. The strategic thinking, the long-term planning, that seems highly relevant to, say, business leadership.
Makes sense.
The tactical calculation, anticipating moves and counter-moves. You could draw parallels to political maneuvering, maybe even legal strategy. And more broadly, things like improved problem-solving skills, logical reasoning, concentration, patience. Surely those are beneficial just about anywhere in life.
You'd think so. Is there debate about that, though?
There is. The debate centers on the idea of far transfer. It's one thing for chess skills to help in closely related strategic domains, but do they directly improve, say, your math ability or your reading comprehension? The research there is more mixed and debated.
So it's not like playing chess automatically makes you better at everything else that requires thinking.
Probably not directly, no. There's likely some overlap, especially in those core areas of logical, analytical, and strategic thought. But it's not a magic bullet for universal cognitive enhancement. The extent of that transfer is still being studied.
Got it. So benefits seem clear. Transferability is somewhat debated. Are there any downsides? Any potential negative consequences to getting really, really deep into chess?
Yes. Like any intense pursuit, there are things to be aware of. The sheer mental effort can lead to exhaustion, what players call chess burnout.
I can imagine.
And because a lot of serious improvement requires solitary study, analyzing games, reading books, there's a potential for it to become isolating if not balanced with social interaction.
Right, spending hours alone with a board or screen.
Exactly. For young players especially, there's sometimes a concern about developing maybe a one-dimensional identity where everything revolves around chess success.
Yeah, that pressure.
And physically, it's a sedentary activity. Hours sitting isn't great for overall health without compensating elsewhere. The competitive pressure can also cause significant anxiety and stress for some people.
True. And ironically, does the nature of chess itself limit its applicability sometimes?
That's an interesting point. Chess is a game of perfect information. Both players theoretically see everything. The real world is messy, full of hidden information, luck, uncertainty.
Right. Not quite like chess.
So some argue the decision-making skills honed in chess might not perfectly map onto situations where you don't have all the facts laid out. There's also the reality of hitting skill plateaus, the role of natural talent. It's not purely effort equals results.
So it's complex. Huge benefits, but also potential pitfalls to watch out for, especially with intense involvement.
It is. It's a powerful tool, amazing for the mind, great for connection, but yeah, like anything, balance and perspective are pretty key.
Well, this has been fascinating. This deep dive really shows that chess is, it's so much more than just moving pieces. It's history, psychology, culture, philosophy, all rolled into one. A mental gym, a social bridge, a mirror to ourselves. With, as you say, that complex mix of upsides and potential downsides.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it, how a game born over 1,500 years ago still holds such power and continues to evolve.
Absolutely. And thinking about that evolution, here's a final thought for you, the learner, to maybe chew on. Considering this incredible journey chess has taken and how it keeps changing, what new transformations might the deepening integration of artificial intelligence bring to this ancient game in the coming centuries? And how might that in turn reflect our own shifting understanding of what strategy and intelligence even mean?
A big question for the future.
Indeed. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
This is DigitView.